This is my game 377 sprint. First thing I did was change my visualizer class. So before we had just calling render bsphere on the actual objects that I was rendering, and now I completely changed that so that now we take visualizer data and we have an actual data structure. So it's like actually like using the commands and so that the user can only push things to the list rather than actually calling render itself. So it'll add it to our visualizer list. You can see that here. It's adding it to the list. Same thing for AABBs. Showing the collision volume so that now it works universally regardless of the volume type that you have. It just takes in the color. Obviously the create is still the same, but here's render all, where it just goes through the list and it properly calls it on depending on the volume type. I also changed stuff so that it's not, everything isn't so open and exposed to users. I haven't completely finished that, but I changed the engine, the scene manager, and I think even the visualizer I was messing with. So I had to restructure certain things, friend the scene manager with the engine so they could still call my scene managers delete, but not have that exposed to users. So I finally kind of saw the light and started fixing that. But that'll be a work in progress as I move that, change that between all the systems. So my drawable manager calls that render all in between the 3D and 2D draw. My collision volume has been updated. So now we have the debug view, obviously, and then intersect for bsphere and AABB. And then my new derived type is obviously the AABB. So we can compute the data where we get the min and the max, and we calculate the center. And that's all stuff that I added in my math tools. Scale translation to get the world matrix, to update the world matrix properly. And then using the visitor and double dispatch for actually calculating the intersection and passing the different pointers in between each other. So calling return other intersect this, and then it'll properly call the real intersection on the derived type. Here's debug view showing ABB. So my math tools. Just to show all my functions that I added. Getting the collision volume. Obviously, collidable needs to get collision volume if we want that case where we're just doing this one. And then for the actual derived types, we now have AABB and AABB, where we're just testing the negative cases for the testing the min and the max. And then if we get to the end and it's true, but if at any point the no cases aren't true, then we can return false. So intersection between AABB and bsphere, get the center, clamp it, use that to check if it's the clamp center is actually within the sphere, and that's when we return true. Calculating the minimum, just going through it and checking and each vertex on each axis and updating it. Same thing for max. Calculating the center, self-explanatory. Same thing for clamp. Now if we run this, you'll see that I also changed my game to add the splash screen, add screen that I talked about last week. So if we press space or enter, you can see we're in my game. This is me controlling my God camera. You can see my AABB is properly registering collisions between other AABBs even when I spin around. Oops. hit game over there because I ran out of lives. So you can see ABB versus ABB even when I rotate, and these are also at 0.5 scaling, so it works with scaling too. This is me running into ABB with B sphere. That's how I'm losing lives. When I hit 0 lives, that's when we hit our game over screen. And if I press space or enter again, we'll come back and start the game over again. So now I have more of a game loop. And that's pretty much it. My independent research kind of hit a roadblock because I started integrating stuff and I was using the documentation as a guide and watching videos to see on how to actually include it. So I got it to actually link, but then I have unresolved externals. So these are my includes, so it knows it's there. I added them to my dist folder, and it can recognize them. But when I actually tried to implement the starting system, I get a problem with oops, unresolved externals. So I was troubleshooting that for like maybe 2 hours, and I couldn't figure it out in time. So I am not able to get sound actually playing currently, but I'll make sure to get that by the weekend because I was looking through the documentation and seeing everything I'd include. I think I'm gonna try it in an empty project and also try out their examples so that I can have a better feel of what to do and not have any kind of like strange complications or like bigger stuff to worry about in an empty project and with the examples. This is my to-do list for the game. I have my upcoming sprint, fleshed out my next sprint a little, fleshed out some of the long-term stuff, some of the long-term systems, and then as I go, I'll keep updating those, and I'll try to make this a little bit more detailed and robust. But that's pretty much it.